And welcome back, everybody. If you're new here, my name is Gerald. I am a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and I'm going to run you through your New Year's forecast today. Let me go ahead and give you a quick game plan for today's video. I'll start off by going into the forecast for New Year's Eve itself. I'll run you through an in-depth futurecast in multiple areas of the country that will experience unsettled weather, as well as a temperature forecast for the entire country. After that, we're going to move into a very dangerous, powerful system that is going to move through the country to start off the new year, going into the very beginning of next week, which will likely produce a severe weather outbreak throughout a pretty big section of the South and even potentially into the eastern part of the country. So that's the game plan for today. Although this is a very dynamic system, so this will likely be a very long video, as I will have to go in depth on all of the different parts and evolution of this system. But before we get into all that weather stuff, just want to say thank you for joining me today. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed, I'd love for you to do so. That would mean the world to me. And if you like the video, give it a like and let me know where you're watching from. I always love to see where my viewers are watching from. So something I did want to touch on real quick actually is a little bit different from anything I guess I've shown in previous videos. Some of you may have noticed I've had the link to this in my videos prior to this, but another thing I like to do other than the weather is photography and landscape photography, to be, I guess, a little bit more exact. So this is something you might be interested in. The link for this is in the description. It is also on my cover page of my channel. And this is a great way to support me and my education. All right, so that's enough about me. Let's go ahead and get right into the weather for this coming week. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot of it. So we'll go ahead and start here with the satellite imagery. And something I did want to mention real quick before I forget, I took the mouse off of the screen. So I got a comment saying it's a bit distracting, and I kind of agree with that. So I'm going to try to use my pen a little bit more often here, so you don't have to see the mouse flying around the screen as much. And I'll just point out the areas that I think I need to. So looking at satellite, though, as you can see over here in the west, still this atmospheric river flooding into the western coast of the United States, and then a lot of convection firing off here in the Gulf. That is the leftover of the storms from last night that moved through portions of Texas and Louisiana. So pretty active satellite imagery this morning, or I guess this afternoon now, I should say. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our hazards for today. We do have a couple flash flood warnings here into the New Orleans area, just off of Lake Pontchartrain there. So if you're in that area, make sure you're being careful. And then just some different flood warnings for certain rivers there into sections of East Texas and western Louisiana. Also, you'll notice flash flood watches here into Buffalo with all that snow melt that we are dealing with up there due to this warmer pattern. Same story over here in California. A lot of flood watches for this atmospheric river that continues to pummel the west coast, with winter storm warnings here in the higher elevations of the west, and then winter weather advisories there in the purple. And then the pinks are the winter storm warnings. So that's our current hazards for today. And it looks like we also have even a severe thunderstorm warning currently here in the Mobile area. So by the time you're watching this, I'm sure that will be gone, but still a interesting thing to look at there. So this might be a little blurry. I'll zoom in, but I just want to give an overall look at radar before we zoom into more specific areas. As you can tell, unsettled weather here on the west coast, storms here in the south and southeast, and then showers here throughout Texas and here through the Ohio River Valley is currently what we are dealing with. So let's go ahead and take a zoomed in look at some of these areas. As you can see out here into California, give this a second to load. Sorry about that. Should have had that a little bit more prepared. But the flow is just really continuing off the Pacific here. One of the most impressive, I guess, pineapple expresses, as we call it in the meteorology world, that I've seen in my short lifetime here. But now if we go ahead and look at the southeast here, again, very unsettled weather here going into Louisiana and Mississippi, and we even have that severe thunderstorm warning currently in the Mobile, Alabama area. So a lot going on there. And then, of course, just some showers that we're dealing with here throughout, really from St. Louis up towards Chicago and into Michigan. All right, so let's go ahead and now do an in-depth look at the forecast for your New Year's Eve. I'm going to show all the areas that will likely see unsettled weather. So we'll go ahead and start with the southwestern part of the United States here. and just take a look at what you can expect as you're celebrating the new year. All right, so we'll go ahead and bring this in through tonight here. Let me, okay, there we go. Sorry about that. It's a little delayed there, but we will go ahead and bring this into tonight and into your Saturday afternoon. So this is New Year's Eve afternoon. Down here is your legend to look at what all these colors mean, but we have still rain coming in here into Sacramento and San Francisco with very heavy mountain snow here into the Sierra Nevadas. And again, this is going into Saturday afternoon, so New Year's Eve afternoon. Still relatively dry here into sections of the Four Corners, but still this atmospheric river continuing in a lot of these areas. That rain will begin to slide south throughout the day, so likely clearing out into NoCal, into Northern California here, with rain then moving into LA and maybe even San Diego, as we ring in the new year, but still relatively dry along the Four Corners for your New Year's Eve. All right, going into the northwest now, currently have some pretty heavy mountain snow ongoing into sections of Idaho. That will continue through tonight. But as we bring this ahead into your Saturday afternoon time frame, pretty dry here throughout sections of Washington State, as well as the Oregon coastline and extreme northern sections here of the western United States, but still very unsettled weather here into sections of southern Idaho and into different portions of the Rockies here going into your your Saturday night. And as we're ringing in the new year here, pretty much what you see during the day tomorrow is what you will see through the night here, although precipitation will try to sag further south. So pretty dry here in the sections of Seattle, Portland, Medford. Those areas should be pretty good if you want to, have dry conditions for that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the southeast now. This is where we have some of those stronger storms currently moving through the area. And we will go ahead and bring this ahead in time. As you can see, these are the storms that are currently moving through the Mobile area with that severe thunderstorm warning. And we've had some showers here throughout the Carolinas today. That will likely continue into the overnight. But as we get into Saturday morning, this line will begin to break down and we'll really just be left with some showers through a lot of areas of the southeast here. Maybe some mountain rain here into North Georgia, southwestern North Carolina, and the upstate of South Carolina going into your Saturday afternoon. As we go through the day, though, maybe a couple of storms and maybe even some isolated thunderstorms try to fire here going into the Piedmont of South Carolina, and that will likely cross the Savannah from Georgia. All right, so again, that Saturday afternoon, expect a round of showers and storms here through portions of Georgia and the Carolinas. As we get into the overnight, though, things begin to clear out. I would expect maybe some showers left over here in the coastal regions and potentially even into the Big Bend of Florida. All right, go ahead and look at the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys now. All right, let me try to bring this down a little bit so I can keep that legend up for you. All right, so this is going now into tomorrow morning. Showers here through the Ohio River. Indianapolis likely seeing some rain tomorrow morning. As we get into the afternoon, though, a lot of these showers are going to push to the east, so you should clear out in a lot of these areas. So going into tomorrow night, pretty clear conditions through a big section of this area. Don't rule out some isolated showers, and it'll likely still be soggy from the rain that fell earlier in the day, but will clear out as the day goes on. Then might get a little bit of a clipper system of sorts to move into the Chicago area as we go further into the overnight. All right, looking at the Mid-Atlantic now, I know a lot of different parties going on over here, including the big New Year's Eve celebration into New York and other major cities along the I-95. But going into Saturday morning, rain here along the Appalachians in Virginia, as well as up through the Pittsburgh area. This will be a pretty quick-hitting line of showers that will move through a big section of the Mid-Atlantic here, really stretching from D.C. down towards Raleigh into South Carolina. You'll have this line of showers and maybe even some embedded thunderstorms on your Saturday afternoon. But that will eventually clear out and push off to the east, and as we get closer to midnight, should clear out through a pretty big section of the Mid-Atlantic. All right, last place we're going to look at here is the Northeast. Likely a soggier New Year's Eve here through the Northeast and the other areas, because as that rain is pushing to the east, it will be pushing through this area going into your New Year's Eve. All right, so bringing in this is Saturday afternoon. Pretty pretty solid rain falling along the I-95 from Philadelphia up towards New York City and Boston going into your Saturday. Around sunset, still showers moving through these areas. I-95 corridor should clear out closer to midnight. New York City, I would expect showers still left over, although the timing on this has trended quicker through the past couple of days. So that's some good news there, but it'll definitely still be wet from all the rain that falls earlier in the day. Areas further into New England, into places like Maine, likely still dealing with some showers as we go into that midnight hour. All right, so with all this rain coming tomorrow, we do have a bit of a flash flood risk, although not in the east, but more in the west here. Yeah, with a slight risk here, as you can see down there at the bottom, going through a lot of coastal sections of California, really from San Francisco all the way down towards LA. So those areas, although you need the rain, don't really want it all this quickly, but be careful if you're having to deal with that. So high temperatures for tomorrow on your New Year's Eve. Pretty pleasant overall compared to what it could be this time of year. So got 70s here along the Gulf of Mexico, maybe even touching 80 in the usual suspect areas such as Miami and maybe even into Brownsville, Texas. But 60s, pretty likely here. I'd say kind of in this general zone with some 40s mixing in there in the higher, or the 40s and 50s mixing in to the higher elevations. And then kind of a band of 40-degree temperatures through here. So, and then of course, as for the West Coast, your temperature will really be dependent on elevation as well as all that rain you're receiving. So very cold in the mountains, of course, and then into the 50s along the California coastline and 40s further north up the West Coast. All right, lows tomorrow night. Relatively seasonable lows, a bit warmer than normal just because that rain's going to help to limit temperatures from falling. But this is your freezing line here in blue. If you're in any color in this blue area or north, it is below freezing for your low tomorrow night. 40s and 50s pretty widespread throughout the southeast as well as mid-Atlantic with 30s mixing in the further north you go into New England. And then pretty cold temperatures here into the northern plains. All right, so now that we've talked about that system, let's go ahead and talk about this major system that is going to move through the beginning of next week and likely cause a lot of problems for us here in the Mid-South. And then that threat will move to the east. And there's multiple other threats with this, including likely blizzard conditions here into the northern plains, which we will discuss. All right, so this is current conditions. Still dealing with this line of storms moving through the southeast, and that atmospheric river is continuing out west. All right, we'll go ahead and move this ahead. We've talked about the weather for tomorrow. So now let's move into Sunday into New Year's Day. What it looks like we're dealing with here is this low pressure getting going here into the Rockies. As you can tell, unsettled weather will move from California further west towards Utah and into the Four Corners region, where higher elevations will be seeing snow and the lower elevations will be seeing rain. All right, so as you can see now we get into early Monday morning as this low pressure is coming out here of Colorado. And this is whenever it's really going to get going. And I should also add, we are looking at the GFS model here. We'll take a look at the Euronext to see if there are any differences between the two. But this low pressure is going to come out of the Rockies and really get going. This is going into Monday afternoon. And just look at all of these winds coming out of the south, out of the Gulf of Mexico here, really helping to fuel instability in this area. And that, combined with this strong low pressure pushing winds over this area, is really going to help create a very dangerous situation in terms of wind shear and storms. So we have that to worry about. And then here on the northern side of this, look at snow breaking out here into sections of the plains from Nebraska into the Dakotas. So this will likely continue getting that heavier, more wintry precipitation to the north, and then a dangerous line of storms here to the south and east of that low pressure system. So here with the GFS, this will evolve. This will continue going into now. This would be Tuesday afternoon after having storms on Monday. The storms push off to the east, moving into Dixie Alley, maybe even getting as far north as Kentucky here, with blizzard conditions likely still continuing here into extreme northern sections of Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan on the latest GFS here. So those storms will continue to move into the mid-Atlantic and still likely have ingredients to work with to become severe, even once we get into the Carolinas here, potentially as far north as a place like Virginia going into Wednesday. So after that, it looks like we might try to get a little bit of a secondary low to form down here, which will likely just keep the unsettled weather here locked into the southeast. So I would expect a pretty rainy, kind of cloudy conditions across the southeastern United States, really for the first half of next week before hopefully eventually clearing out as we go into later next week. And then that's whenever we have round two coming into California. But we'll save that for another video because this is already going to be a very long video. All right, so that's the GFS. Let's take a look at the Euro now and see what the Euro is showing compared to the GFS. All right, so let's go ahead and move this out into Sunday afternoon. Once again, very similar story here on the Euro. Low pressure getting going here along the Four Corners region. And then that dives out of the Rockies coming into Monday and Monday afternoon here on the Euro. And once again, just look at all of this convection firing here into the deep south, really from Dallas, Texas, over to Birmingham, Alabama, seeing these storms fire up. So, and then of course, like the GFS showed, although a little bit more extreme here in the Euro, getting that more wintry precipitation to break out on the northern side of this system with likely blizzard conditions. Euro, this is now going into the overnight hours of Monday, still likely dealing with a severe weather threat here into a lot of the areas that we're dealing with it into the daytime. As this then begins to push off to the east, heavy snow here, potentially into sections of the plains. And then, of course, the severe weather threat into the south. And overall, the trend has been for more of a discrete cell threat than a line of storms, which is not really what you want to see in these areas. It just makes it easier for tornadoes to form. Going into Tuesday afternoon, potentially this threat moving into areas like the Carolinas and Georgia, and then further off to the east going into Tuesday evening and night before Wednesday, getting another round of rain here as a secondary low tries to form here into the same areas of the mid-Atlantic and southeast. And then once again, just like the GFS showed, we get round two coming into California by the middle to end of next week, which we'll save that conversation for another time. So with all of this, and this is such a dynamic system, what we have to worry about here is a lot of severe weather. So the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and pulled the trigger for a 30% risk here into sections of Arkansas, or just really the Arklatex region in general, from Little Rock down to sections of northern Louisiana and extreme northeastern Texas. So pretty rare to see that here past 3 days to get a 30% point included. So that will then push further to the east as we go into next Tuesday. They've already highlighted an area here across Dixie Alley, and then likely going into Tuesday and Wednesday, this threat will shift further off towards the Carolinas. All right, so let's look at a couple of different parameters here between the GFS and the Euro, and I'll try to explain these as best as I can. But we'll start here with the GFS. This is the supercell composite parameter. So what this shows us is how well the ingredients are for supercells to form. And supercells are what likely or generally create damaging winds and oftentimes tornadoes. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is the GFS, and we'll bring this ahead. This is going into Monday afternoon. There we go. As you can see, we're starting to get up there in some of these numbers here in sections like East Texas. So the GFS is definitely signaling an area here into the south, really from East Texas through sections of Mississippi. So I really think that the Storm Prediction Center has done a very good job with their 30% risk. I really think it's going to be in that general area. So that's the GFS Supercell Composite. Now we'll actually go ahead and bring this ahead further into time just so I can show you. This is going to, make sure I'm clicking the right thing here. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is going into Tuesday evening. That threat pushes into Dixie Alley with an overnight threat. And then once we get into Wednesday afternoon, actually, let me back this up even more for you. Sorry, the timing I said wasn't quite correct. All right, yeah, so this is going into Monday afternoon, Monday evening. And then as we go into your Tuesday afternoon, the threat pushes over into Dixie Alley. And then going into Wednesday afternoon, that threat pushes into sections here of the mid-Atlantic and into the Carolinas. All right, so let's look now at the another parameter from the GFS. This pretty much just shows how easy it is for the storms to spin, how well the ingredients are to get rotating thunderstorms, which again often produce tornadoes. So we'll go ahead and move this ahead into time. This is Monday afternoon here, getting these storms with pretty good numbers here. Once you start seeing these brighter colors, once you get past the blues, that's really whenever it starts to get a bit more serious here. So again, highlighting an area into East Texas here, and once we really get into peak heating on Monday, these values really start to go up. And these areas that you see, these yellows and oranges, are places you really want to watch out for rotating thunderstorms. Once again, going into Tuesday afternoon, the GFS continues this and even gets some of these brighter colors into a place like Birmingham, Alabama. And then once we go into Wednesday afternoon, GFS pushes this into Georgia and the Carolinas with a little bit less to work with, but still a threat nonetheless. All right, so next thing we're going to look at here, as you can see, I just have so many tabs at the top of the screen here, because we have a lot to talk about. So this, I'm going to do a little bit of explaining on this chart because it can be a little, I guess, intimidating whenever you first look at it. But this is the Euro model, and this is showing CAPE mixed with winds at different heights in the atmosphere. So CAPE, if you haven't heard of CAPE, just think of it as thunderstorm fuel. Just like putting fuel in your car, it helps your car run. The brighter these colors, the more CAPE there is, which makes it easier for thunderstorms to form and grow. As for these things, these are the wind barbs. So generally, what you want to see for severe weather, if you're a thunderstorm and you want good conditions to rotate and form, you want these colors to be bright, and you want these wind barbs to be going in different directions. So an example, I'll just pick one on the map of kind of going in different directions here. In a place like Nashville, you see that these wind barbs are going in different directions, which helps with wind shear. So that's kind of the best way, I guess, to explain this map. But this is going into Monday afternoon here on the Euro. Let me go one more click. CAPE values here approaching 2,000 here into Texas. I know the colors are a little muted on this map, but right here, getting into the 2,000 area, and the wind shear in an area like this looks pretty favorable with the winds going in different directions here with different heights. So we'll go ahead and move this further into time now, going into Monday or Tuesday afternoon now. That threat again pushes into Dixie Alley here, getting CAPE upwards of past 1,000. Once you get past 1,000, it's really whenever things start to get a bit dangerous. And the wind shear here, I mean, looks very favorable here with height in places here along Dixie Alley. So we'll move this further ahead into your Wednesday afternoon. This threat then moves into areas like the Carolinas. Once again, a bit muted compared to what we will deal with earlier in the week, but still a threat nonetheless. All right, so the other portion of this system is snowfall. So this is the blend of models, so all the models thrown together and what they think will generally be seen with snow. So likely a pretty big stretch of snow here going into the plains on the northern side of this system. Some areas potentially maybe getting past half a foot of snow, between 6 and 12 inches. This part will evolve, so we'll have to watch exactly where this low tracks. But I think the highest amounts, close to a foot, are possible in isolated spots, with 6 inches being a pretty safe bet in most areas. All right, so that's the snowy side of this. There's also going to be an ice component with this. Whenever you get so much Gulf moisture getting advected northward, what you get is warmer than 32 degrees at certain heights in the atmosphere, which helps create things like sleet and freezing rain. So this is a freezing rain map. As you can see right now, the current thought will be in this general area into parts of Iowa, southeastern Nebraska, and maybe even northern Kansas, and then going into sections of Wisconsin. As for the numbers here, here's your legend, but about 1/4 of an inch in the worst spots. So that will be another problem with those strong winds that will also be coming into these areas with that strong low pressure system. All right, so the final map I'll show you today, I know this has been a long one, is total rainfall from all of this going through the middle of next week. Of course, as we've talked about, I mean, just crazy stuff coming into California here. Just a ton of rain, areas getting half a foot of rain from this, and then some areas getting even close to a foot of rain through sections of California with that atmospheric river. As for the east, again, pretty big section here of rainy conditions. Look at some of the numbers here. Uh, I think a bit of a bullseye here potentially, just where that Gulf moisture gets slammed against the Appalachian Mountains and really brings it out here into North Georgia, upstate South Carolina, and the mountains of western North Carolina, or at least the southern-facing slopes of those mountains. Could see, you know, potentially 5 to 6 inches of rain, but a more widespread 1 to 3 will be likely throughout the south. And then other areas that really get stuck with those thunderstorms, seeing closer to 5 inches as well. As for the Northeast, honestly, you're going to get a little kind of spared compared to other areas in terms of rainfall, with a lot of areas not even receiving half an inch of rain. But the Ohio River Valley, 1 to 3 inches is a pretty safe bet. And then upwards of 3 inches here into the Mississippi Delta, the southern branches of the Mississippi River. So that is all I've got for today. If you made it this far into the video, let me know. That is quite an accomplishment, because I almost didn't even make it through this video, and I'm recording it. So anyway, thanks for joining me. And again, if you liked the video, hit the like button, and I would really appreciate if you subscribed. It would mean the world to me. But I hope everyone has a safe New Year's Eve, and I will see you all tomorrow.